Before the L word existed, there were prison dramas like Bad Girls. Before we had the ability to binge entire seasons within one weekend of a show, we had to wait. You see, for a long time, if you wanted to see lesbian stories on TV, then you had to search for them through subtext, through whispered, coded language. But then all of a sudden, a wave of prison dramas kicked the door down and put queer women front and centre, when almost nobody else would. They gave us iconic, complicated women to root for and to ship and to mourn. These shows became a cultural phenomenon, a shared touchstone for a global audience that was starved for representation. But is locking queer women behind bars to tell their stories like some sort of double-edged sword? Was it giving us real, authentic representation? Or was it just a glamorous cage that we built with the same old harmful tropes? Well, today we're going to break down the walls of HMP Lark Hall, Litchfield Penitentiary, and the Wentworth Correctional Centre. We're comparing the iconic couples and storylines from Bad Girls, Orange of the New Black, and Wentworth to see who truly broke new ground and who fell into old traps, and which show, ultimately, got prison lesbians right. So let's be honest, the whole women in prison genre has a long and pretty complicated history. For years, it was the territory of B-movies and pulp fiction, a place where lesbianism was presented as either an erotic fantasy or a sign of deviance. The characters were usually stock stereotypes, the predatory butch or the innocent straight girl who becomes gay for the stay. So when these big three dramas came along, they weren't just telling stories, they were pushing back against a history of exploitation. Let's start with the show that many consider the godmother for the modern genre, Bad Girls. Premiering in 1999, it really did walk so the others could run. Its central romance between inmate Nikki Wade and wing governor Helen Stewart was revolutionary for its time. While other shows kept their queer characters on the sidelines, Bad Girls made this relationship a core plotline. It was messy, forbidden, and incredibly dramatic. But it was also treated with a rare sincerity. It wasn't just about the thrill of a prison affair, it was about two people genuinely falling in love against all odds. So for many viewers, it was the first time they'd actually seen a lesbian relationship portrayed with such depth. And the best part? It ended not in tragedy, but with a passionate kiss and the implied promise of a shared future. Then, in 2013, came the 1-2 punch that brought the genre to a global streaming audience. Orange is the New Black and Wentworth. Orange is the New Black arrived with what many critics called a brilliant Trojan horse strategy. It's centered on Piper Chapman, a relatable middle-class white woman whose past relationship with Alex Voss lands her in prison. This familiar entry point allowed the show to introduce a cast of women more diverse than anything we'd seen on TV, including many queer characters like Nikki, Big Boo, and Pussy. But the show often stumbled. The constant back and forth of the central Vossman relationship sparked criticism, with some arguing it played into the tired trope of bisexuality being a temporary phase. And while the show was praised for lacking homophobia, some academic analysis pointed out that its focus on graphic lesbian sex scenes, often more so than heterosexual ones, continued a tradition of using queerness for titillation. This is where Wentworth slammed the door on subtlety. A gritty, brutal reboot of the 1970s Australian soap, Prisoner, Wentworth presented a world where queerness felt far more than normalised. The show was praised for its realism, showing a harsh environment where relationships were complex and driven by character, not just plot. The central queer character, Frankie Doyle, was a hip, tattooed dyke, a world away from the sad caricatures of the original series. Her relationship with prison psychologist Bridget Westfall, dubbed Frigid by fans, became iconic. Their connection was built through intense therapy sessions, power plays, and genuine vulnerability, creating a dynamic that felt earned and deeply authentic. When Bridget matter-of-factly states, "Yes, I am a lesbian," it was a moment that fans celebrated for its powerful, straightforward delivery, something rarely seen on television. Nowhere is the complexity of these shows clearer than in how they handle power, especially in staff-inmate relationships. This is a fraught trope, one that can easily slide into exploitative fantasy. The real-world data is murky, but reports from prisons document sexual involvement between staff and inmates, relationships where the inherent power imbalance makes true consent impossible. Bad Girls set the template with Helen and Nikki. As wing governor, Helen held all the power, and their relationship constantly flirted with ethical collapse. Helen's career was always on the line, and she ultimately had to resign from prison to pursue the relationship, acknowledging the impossible conflict of interest. The show framed their dynamic as a genuine romance, constantly threatened by the power imbalance, rather than being defined by it. In Orange is the New Black, it explored these dynamics with multiple couples, but often with a focus on the dysfunction. The relationship between guard Bennett and inmate Dyer, while heterosexual, established the show's interest in these forbidden connections. Later, the dynamic between Alex and guard McCullough felt a bit more on transactional power and control than mutual affection. The power McCullough wielded created an environment of coercion, highlighting the inherent dangers of such relationships in a prison setting. Wentworth, true to form, dove headfirst into the darkest corners of this trope. The show had a few instances of this, but the most compelling was the relationship between Frankie Doyle and prison psychologist Bridget Westfall. Their relationship began in a professional setting, with Bridget as Frankie's therapist, creating an intimate and immediate, significant power imbalance. The show didn't shy away from this. It made it central, and it's central to the tension of their story. Their sessions were a battle of wills, peeling back layers that blurred the line between professional and personal. While their relationship turned romantic, it threatened both Frankie's parole and Bridget's career. Yet, what made them Frigid so deeply resonate with fans was its journey towards equilibrium. Once Frankie was released from prison, the dynamic shifted. They were actually able to meet on equal footing, and it transformed their relationship from a dangerous, forbidden affair into a stable, supportive partnership. This evolution allowed Wentworth to explore the power imbalance without glorifying it, ultimately resolving it in a way that felt both responsible and deeply satisfying. Now, you can't talk about lesbian representation without talking about the bury your gays trope, because for decades, queer characters, especially lesbians, have been killed off at disproportionately high rates, often right after finding a moment of happiness. Their deaths get used for shock value or to push a straight character's storyline forward. All of these shows have major lesbian character deaths, but how they're handled and why speaks volumes. So first, let's give credit where it's due with Bad Girls. So the show's iconic couple, Nikki and Helen, famously got a happy ending. Both actresses left the show after season 3, and their characters were written out together, leaving to start a new life. And this was, and still, a significant act of defiance against the tragic lesbian narrative. Orange is the New Black, on the other hand, delivered one of the most controversial examples of the trope, with the death of Poussey Washington. Pusey was the show's moral compass, a beloved character who had just found love with So-So. Her death was accidental, caused by an untrained guard improperly restraining her during a peaceful protest. The writers said her death was intended as a powerful commentary on the Black Lives Matter movement, mirroring the real-world death of Eric Garner. Show creator Genji Kohan stated that it had to be someone we loved for the death to have an impact, and it did. The final shot of her on the cafeteria floor was devastating. Still, the reaction was deeply divided. While some saw it as a necessary political statement, many others felt it was gratuitous use of a black lesbian's death. And then there's Wentworth's Queen Bee. Bee Smith's journey was the heart of the first 4 seasons. She entered Wentworth a battered wife and transformed into a powerful top dog. A journey that included avenging her own daughter's death, and in her final season she found an unexpected and profound love with Ali Novak. And for a moment it seemed that Bee might finally get a happy ending. But her arch nemesis, Joan the Freak Ferguson, was about to be released. Bee knew Ferguson would never stop tormenting her and the people that she loved, so she made a choice. In the season 4 finale, Bee orchestrated a confrontation and forced Ferguson to stab her, ensuring the Freak would be locked away for good. Bee's death was utterly heartbreaking for fans, a gut punch that left many questioning if they could continue to watch the show. For many, it was clear and a painful example of bury your gaze, but the context here is crucial. Unlike Pusey's accidental death, Bee's was an act of agency. It was a tragic, heroic sacrifice and a culmination of her entire character arc. She didn't die because she was a lesbian who finally found love. She died as a protector, a leader, making the ultimate move to save everyone else. While it's still a tragic ending, it fits the trope's pattern as well. Well, her death was framed not as a random act of violence, but as the final devastating move in a 4-season chess match against pure evil. And it served her character and her story, and it broke our hearts. So, after locking ourselves in with these titans of television, who got it right? Bad Girls was the trailblazer. It gave us a central, sincere lesbian romance with a happy ending, and at the time, that was practically unheard of. It laid the foundation for everything that followed. Orange is the New Black brought lesbian representation to the mainstream on a scale that we'd never seen before. And it gave us a huge, diverse cast of queer women and wasn't afraid to tackle tough social situations. But in the final count, it's Wentworth, and it stands as the genre's crowning achievement in authentic representation. So which show do you think got it right? And which couple will you never forget? Let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to find out. And if you like this video, you know what to do. Hit like, hit subscribe, the bell for more. And until next time, take care. Bye.